Have you ever wondered why the moments that hurt the most are the ones that change you forever? Not the days of comfort, not the seasons when everything flows easily, but the nights when your chest feels heavy, when silence becomes loud, when you ask yourself questions you never dared to ask before. What if the pain you are trying so hard to escape is not your enemy, but your invitation? What if the wound you hide is the very doorway to your awakening? According to Rumi, pain is not a punishment. It is a messenger. And most of us spend our lives shooting the messenger without ever reading the letter. We live in a world obsessed with avoiding discomfort. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, scroll endlessly, chase achievements, relationships, validation, anything to avoid sitting alone with the ache inside. But Rumi saw something radically different in suffering. For him, pain was not a mistake in the design of life. It was part of its sacred architecture. He wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a spiritual law. The crack in your certainty, the heartbreak that shattered your illusions, the failure that stripped away your pride. These are not random events. They are chisels carving away the false self. Think about it. When everything is comfortable, you rarely question who you are. You identify with your roles, your success, your relationships. You feel solid, defined. But when loss arrives, when someone leaves, when a dream collapses, when life does not go according to plan, something in you trembles. The identity you built begins to crack. And in that crack, a deeper question emerges. Who am I without this? Who am I when everything I depended on disappears? For Rumi, this trembling was sacred. He believed that pain loosens the grip of the ego. It softens the hard shell we create around our hearts. The ego wants control, certainty, admiration. It wants a story where it is always winning. But life does not obey that story. And when reality contradicts our expectations, we feel pain. Yet in that very contradiction lies transformation. Pain exposes our attachments. It shows us where we have clung too tightly. It reveals the illusions we mistook for truth. Rumi himself did not speak about suffering from a distance. His life was shaken to its core when he met Shams of Tabriz, a wandering mystic who shattered his comfortable identity as a respected scholar. And when Shams disappeared, Rumi was plunged into unbearable grief. But instead of closing his heart, he let the pain break him open. Out of that heartbreak poured thousands of verses of poetry that still move the world centuries later. His sorrow became a river of divine love. His loss became illumination. This is the paradox Rumi invites us to contemplate. What if pain is not the opposite of love, but one of its deepest expressions? When you love deeply, you become vulnerable. You risk loss, you risk rejection, you risk disappointment. Pain becomes the price of an open heart. But Rumi would say it is also the proof that your heart is alive. A heart that never aches is a heart that has built walls too high. Most of us interpret pain as something that has gone wrong. Rumi interpreted it as something that is going right, but at a deeper level than we understand. He saw suffering as a refining fire. Just as gold must endure intense heat to be purified, the soul must pass through experiences that burn away its impurities. The arrogance, the illusions, the fear, the false identities. And what remains after the burning is something more real, more spacious, more aligned with the divine. But here is where we resist, because pain does not feel holy when we are in the middle of it. It feels chaotic, unfair, lonely. In those moments, the idea that suffering has meaning can sound almost offensive. And yet Rumi would gently whisper, "Stay with it. Do not turn away too quickly. Do not rush to numb what is trying to teach you. There is a wisdom hidden inside the ache. There is a transformation unfolding beneath the surface of your tears. When you sit with your pain instead of escaping it, something subtle begins to shift. At first, you only notice the discomfort, the tightness in your chest, the thoughts looping in your mind, the memories replaying themselves. But if you remain present, without judgment, without trying to fix or suppress, you begin to see that pain is not a solid wall. It is a moving energy. It rises, it falls, it changes shape, and in witnessing it, you discover that you are not the pain itself. You are the awareness holding it. This realization is revolutionary, because the moment you see that you are larger than your suffering, the relationship changes. Pain no longer defines you. It becomes something you experience, not something you are. And in that space, compassion begins to grow, first for yourself and then for others. You start to understand that every person you meet carries invisible wounds. Every harsh word hides an old hurt. Every closed heart once broke open and decided it was safer to shut down. Rumi believed that pain connects us. It humbles us. It dissolves the illusion that we are separate, self-sufficient beings. When you have suffered deeply, you become softer toward the suffering of others. You listen differently. You judge less. You love more carefully. Pain in this sense is a doorway to empathy, and empathy is a doorway to unity. But there is something even deeper in Rumi's understanding of suffering, something that goes beyond psychology, beyond personal growth. He saw pain as a form of longing, a homesickness of the soul, a reminder that we are not fully satisfied by the temporary things of this world. When everything external fails to fill us, when even success feels empty, a deeper yearning awakens. And that yearning is not for more possessions, more praise, or more control. It is for connection, for truth, for the beloved. And this is where the real meaning of pain begins to reveal itself. That longing, according to Rumi, is the hidden engine of the soul. It is the quiet force behind every heartbreak, every disappointment, every restless night. We think we are grieving a person, a lost opportunity, a broken plan. But beneath that surface story, something deeper is moving. The soul is being called beyond its attachments. It is being invited to seek a love that cannot be taken away. Rumi often spoke of the beloved, not merely as a romantic figure, but as the divine presence that lives at the core of existence. When we attach ourselves exclusively to temporary forms, to people, status, security, we inevitably suffer. Not because those things are wrong, but because they are fragile, they change, they end, and when they do, we feel torn apart. Yet Rumi would say, the tearing is not destruction, it is expansion. The heart stretches through loss. It becomes large enough to hold something infinite. Have you noticed how pain strips away illusions? When life collapses, you suddenly see what truly matters. The arguments that once consumed you feel small. The pride you defended so fiercely feels heavy. In moments of deep suffering, you do not crave applause or comparison. You crave authenticity. You crave truth. You crave real connection. Pain simplifies you. It returns you to essentials. It removes the noise and forces you to confront what is real. This is why Rumi did not advise escaping pain, but entering it consciously. Not to drown in it, not to glorify it, but to listen to it. He saw suffering as a teacher disguised as an enemy, and like any teacher, it repeats the lesson until it is understood. If you avoid it, it returns in another form. If you numb it, it speaks louder. But if you sit with it, breathe with it, and ask what it is revealing, it begins to transform. There is a subtle difference between being consumed by pain and being transformed by it. When you resist suffering, it hardens you. You become bitter, defensive, closed. You build armor around your heart. But when you allow pain to break you open, something extraordinary happens. The armor cracks. The vulnerability you feared becomes your strength. You realize that openness is not weakness. It is courage. Rumi understood that the ego fears dissolution. It fears anything that threatens its control. And pain does exactly that. It disrupts your plans. It humbles your certainty. It forces you into spaces you never would have chosen. But from a spiritual perspective, this disruption is sacred. It shakes you awake. It exposes the false foundations on which you built your identity. And once those foundations crumble, you are free to build on something deeper. Think of the moments in your life when you grew the most. Were they the comfortable seasons? Or were they the times when you had no choice but to confront yourself? The times when you faced rejection, failure, loneliness. Those experiences, painful as they were, likely expanded your awareness. They forced you to look inward. They asked you to question who you were and what you truly valued. Without them, you might still be living unconsciously, repeating patterns without reflection. Rumi would say that pain is the sculptor of consciousness. It carves depth into your character. It teaches you humility. It dissolves arrogance. It reminds you that you are not in control of everything, and that surrender is not defeat, but alignment. In surrender, you stop fighting reality. You stop arguing with what is. And in that acceptance, a surprising peace begins to emerge. This peace does not come from circumstances improving. It comes from your relationship with suffering changing. You begin to trust that even in the darkest moments, something meaningful is unfolding. You begin to sense that the ache inside you is not random chaos, but a movement toward wholeness. Like a seed breaking open underground, unseen and messy, yet necessary for growth. There is also a profound intimacy in pain. When you are stripped of distractions, when you are alone with your vulnerability, you encounter yourself without masks, no performance, no image, just raw being. And in that rawness, you may discover a tenderness you never allowed before. You may discover that beneath the fear and anger, there is simply a desire to love and be loved. Rumi's poetry often dances between sorrow and ecstasy because he saw them as intertwined. The same heart that feels deep grief is capable of deep joy. The same openness that allows you to be hurt also allows you to be transformed. To close yourself off from pain is to close yourself off from life. And to open yourself fully is to accept both the wound and the light that enters through it. Yet this path is not comfortable. It requires courage to remain present when everything inside you wants to run. It requires patience to trust the process when you see no immediate resolution. And it requires faith, not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the sense of trusting that your suffering has depth beyond your current understanding. Rumi invites you to shift one fundamental question. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this opening within me?" Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, See yourself as a soul in transformation. This does not deny the reality of pain. It honors it. It treats suffering not as meaningless cruelty, but as part of a larger unfolding. And when you begin to see pain this way, something extraordinary happens. You stop fighting every wave. You start listening to the ocean beneath it. You recognize that your longing, your heartbreak, your restlessness, they are all pointing in the same direction. They are guiding you inward. They are guiding you beyond the temporary identities you cling to. They are guiding you toward a deeper union. Because at the core of Rumi's message lies a radical truth. Pain is the doorway to love, not the superficial love that depends on conditions, but a love that remains when everything else falls away. A love that is not diminished by loss, but revealed through it. And as you stand at that doorway, trembling yet curious, you begin to realize that what you feared as destruction might actually be initiation. And this initiation changes everything. Initiation is rarely gentle. It does not ask for your comfort. It asks for your surrender. In Rumi's vision, suffering is the threshold you must cross to discover who you truly are, beyond the masks, beyond the roles, beyond the stories you tell yourself. The pain you resist is often the very force trying to free you. And the more you cling to what is falling apart, the more it hurts. But when you loosen your grip, even slightly, you begin to feel a different current moving beneath the chaos. Rumi would say that pain is not here to break you. It is here to break what is false. The false sense of control. The false belief that your worth depends on approval. The false idea that security can be found in things that inevitably change. When those illusions collapse, it feels like death. And in a way, it is. It is the death of the smaller self. But what emerges from that death is something far more expansive. There is a moment in deep suffering when you realize you cannot fix it with the usual tools. Distraction no longer works. Achievement feels empty. Even advice from others seems distant. You are left alone with your vulnerability. And in that nakedness, something sacred can happen. You may begin to sense a presence within you that is untouched by the storm, a quiet awareness that watches the grief without being consumed by it. This awareness is not wounded. It is spacious. It is steady. It is alive. For Rumi, this awareness is the doorway to union with the beloved, the divine reality that underlies all existence. Pain becomes the catalyst that pushes you inward, beyond the surface identity, into the depth of your being. It forces you to confront the impermanence of everything external, so that you can discover what is eternal within you. And when you taste even a glimpse of that inner stillness, you understand that suffering was not meaningless. It was guiding you home. But this does not mean you will never feel pain again. Awakening does not eliminate heartbreak. It transforms your relationship with it. You begin to trust that each wave of sorrow carries a message. You begin to see that every ending creates space for a new level of consciousness. Even when tears fall, there is a subtle gratitude beneath them, not for the loss itself, but for the depth it has carved into your soul. The real meaning of pain, according to Rumi, is expansion. It stretches your capacity to love. It deepens your compassion. It humbles your arrogance. It softens your judgments. It reminds you that you are human, fragile, longing, beautifully imperfect. And in accepting that fragility, you become more authentic. You stop pretending to be invincible. You allow yourself to be real. And perhaps this is the greatest transformation of all. When you no longer see pain as an enemy, you stop living in constant fear of it. You stop building your life around avoidance. You start living more fully, more courageously, because you understand that even if your heart breaks, it will break open, not just apart. You realize that the wound and the light are not opposites, they are intertwined. So the next time life brings you to your knees, instead of asking, "Why me?" try whispering, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of rushing to escape the discomfort, pause, breathe, listen. There is wisdom in the ache. There is guidance in the longing. There is a deeper love waiting on the other side of your resistance. And if this message resonates with you, if you feel that quiet recognition in your chest, then stay on this path of reflection. Subscribe to this channel and join this journey of inner exploration. Together, we will continue uncovering the timeless wisdom of Rumi and other mystics who remind us that our deepest wounds can become our greatest openings. Like this video if it touched something within you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their pain is not meaningless. Because the truth is, you are not broken, you are becoming. And sometimes the fire you fear is the very fire that forges your soul into something luminous.